When most of us picture the Middle Ages, we imagine knights clashing in muddy fields, stone castles on the horizon, and peasants scratching out a living with wooden plows. But what if I told you that Europe was not the center of the medieval world? In fact, compared to what was happening elsewhere, Europe was the backwater of history. While Europeans prayed to survive storms, Chinese navigators were crossing oceans with ships so massive, Columbus's fleet would have looked like toy boats. While European doctors bled patients with leeches, Islamic physicians were writing encyclopedias that guided surgeons for centuries. And while European scholars struggled with Roman numerals, Indian mathematicians had already invented the concept of zero, the very foundation of modern science. This is episode 1 of a series where we uncover the real medieval world, the civilizations that flourished while Europe lagged behind. China, the industrial Middle Ages. Picture Europe in the year 1000. Muddy roads, small villages huddled around wooden churches, and a handful of cathedrals just beginning to rise. Most people never traveled more than a few miles from where they were born. Now look east. In China, the Song Dynasty was running what we could honestly call the world's first industrial economy. Imagine vast workshops producing iron tools and weapons in blast furnaces that Europe wouldn't develop for another 3 centuries. This wasn't craftsmanship on a village scale. It was mass production on an empire-wide scale. And China's ambitions weren't limited to land. Their navy sailed on treasure ships more than 400 feet long. To put that in perspective, Columbus's Santa Maria was barely 60 feet. These Chinese vessels weren't just oversized barges. They had watertight compartments, advanced rudder systems, and magnetic compasses to chart courses across open oceans. While European sailors clung nervously to coastlines, Chinese admirals were forging trade networks that stretched from the South China Sea to the shores of Africa. And here's the thing, this is just the beginning. In the next episode, we'll dive into how China built a society that looked like the modern world, 8 centuries too early. The Islamic Golden Age, Baghdad's House of Wisdom. Travel southwest and we arrive in Baghdad, capital of the Abbasid Caliphate. At its heart stood the House of Wisdom, the medieval world's greatest research center. Think of it as a university, library, and laboratory rolled into one. Here, scholars translated ancient Greek philosophy, preserved Persian science, and expanded on Indian mathematics. Algebra, a subject dreaded by modern students, was pioneered here by Al-Khwarizmi, whose very name gives us the word algorithm. Astronomers charted the stars with precision that wouldn't be matched in Europe for centuries, while engineers built water clocks and mechanical devices so advanced they seemed like magic to visiting Europeans. Medicine, too, was leagues ahead. Imagine walking into a hospital with running water, clean surgical wards, and trained physicians, all while European doctors relied on bloodletting and prayers. The great physician Ibn Sina wrote a medical encyclopedia so influential that it remained a standard reference into the 17th century. It's no exaggeration to say that without the Islamic Golden Age, much of the knowledge that sparked Europe's Renaissance might never have survived. And yes, this Golden Age deserves its own spotlight, and it will get one later in this series. India, zero steel, and the spice routes. Shift again to India. While Europeans fumbled with clumsy Roman numerals, Indian mathematicians had already given the world the decimal system and the number 0, an intellectual leap so fundamental that without it, advanced science, physics, and even your smartphone today would be impossible. But mathematics was only one of India's gifts. Indian metallurgists perfected wootz steel, a material so exceptional that it became the legendary Damascus steel of knightly swords. The process was so closely guarded that it baffled European blacksmiths for centuries. And then there was trade. India sat at the crossroads of the spice routes, the lifelines of the medieval economy. Cinnamon, pepper, and cloves weren't just seasonings. They were luxuries worth more than gold, powering global exchange between Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. These innovations didn't stay confined to the subcontinent. Through merchants, scholars, and sailors, India's breakthroughs spread outward, reshaping civilizations across the known world. The Americas. Maya and Inca achievements. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, civilizations in the Americas were achieving marvels entirely on their own, without contact with Eurasia or Africa. The Maya, masters of astronomy, built calendars more accurate than Europe's and cities carefully aligned with the movements of the stars. Their pyramids weren't crude monuments, but astronomical observatories that linked religion, politics, and science. Further south, the Inca constructed an empire across the brutal terrain of the Andes. Without the wheel or written language, they created a network of roads and suspension bridges that connected millions of people. Their administrators kept record with quipu, knotted strings that function like a proto-database, storing census data, taxes, and even history. Think about that. While Europe depended on monks slowly copying manuscripts by candlelight, the Inca were managing a vast empire through an entirely different system of information storage. And in later episodes, we'll explore these American civilizations in much greater detail. Africa, wealth, and stone cities. And then there's Africa, often ignored in medieval narratives, yet home to some of the most impressive societies of the age. In the 14th century, Mansa Musa of Mali undertook his famous pilgrimage to Mecca, carrying so much gold that he disrupted economies along his route. His empire controlled trade routes that linked West Africa to the Mediterranean, fueling prosperity through gold, salt, and scholarship. Timbuktu, far from being a mythical place, was a real center of learning, with libraries that rivaled Europe's monasteries. Further south, the builders of Great Zimbabwe raised massive stone cities without mortar, commanding networks of trade that connected the African interior to Indian Ocean markets. At the same time, the Swahili coast thrived as a chain of city-states where African, Arab, Persian, and even Chinese merchants exchanged goods and ideas. These were not isolated kingdoms. They were integral parts of the global medieval economy. The truth is, Europe wasn't leading the medieval world. It was catching up. The gunpowder that transformed European warfare, the navigational tools that launched the age of exploration, the mathematical concepts that underpinned the scientific revolution, nearly all of them came from beyond Europe's borders. The medieval world was vast, interconnected, and thriving in ways that challenge our assumptions about history. And in this series, we'll bring those forgotten achievements back into the spotlight. In the next episode, we begin in China, where a golden age of industry, innovation, and exploration created a civilization centuries ahead of its time. So tell me, what surprises you most about these hidden medieval achievements? And which civilization are you most excited to explore? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this glimpse into the real Middle Ages opened your eyes like it did mine, make sure to subscribe because this is only the beginning.